Hey, what's up you guys? It's MB Maniac here, and today I'm going to be going over part 2 of my Western Conference standings predictions for the upcoming 2016-17 NBA season. If you missed part 1, the link to that video is in the description below. Now in today's video, I'm going to be going over the 10th through 5th seeds in the West. And to be honest, this was a lot easier for me to predict than the previous video because I think these 5 teams have a lot more established identities. So we have a better idea of knowing what they're actually going to be in the upcoming season. So let's get things started off with the 10th seed. Starting off at number 10, we've got the New Orleans Pelicans. Now this was an easy one for me because this team has been in the same state for the last couple years. They got the A seed a couple years ago and we thought this team might take off. But they haven't really been able to stay healthy, and although that's out of their control, I think when, a player like Anthony Davis, he seems to get hurt pretty regularly. I think it's fair to say it's not, a coincidence. I think he is going to continue to have injury problems, but when he is healthy, he's still going to play like a beast. As we take a look at the rest of the roster, Tyreke Evans, he's a good player. I liked him in Sacramento, and I think he fits in well here. Drew Holiday, I do like his game, but he's been injured as well, and he's got a lot of personal issues, in his life going into the season, which is not a good thing because I feel like it does affect his play. And this guy is who I think is going to be the Rookie of the Year. Now, I don't think he's going to be Rookie of the Year because I think he's going to end up being the best player out of all the rookies. But I do think he'll have the best season because this team needs scoring, and it needs it badly, especially with the loss of Ryan Anderson. So I think he'll put up a good amount of points per game this year. Omar Asik, he's been around the league for a while, and he's a decent starting center, but I don't think he's a big enough name to put alongside Anthony Davis to do some damage in the Western Conference. And other than that, they don't really have much. They paid Solomon Hill that huge contract for a 74 overall. I mean, I don't think he's going to live up to that. And that's really all they have. Quincy Pondexter, he's a decent shooter. He's a good guy to have on your team. And that's pretty much it, though. So, other than Anthony Davis, who's obviously an all-star caliber player, they don't really have much. And although they probably will do better than they did last year, I just don't see this team getting into the playoffs. At number 9, just falling outside of the 2017 NBA playoff picture, is the Houston Rockets. Now, I'm going to start off by saying, I'll be honest, I do not like James Harden at all. A very good offensive talent, but he plays such bad D. I think he's probably the worst defender in NBA history, and he just doesn't get it yet. And what I mean by that is he doesn't understand that, the best way to get to a championship level is to make everyone around you better. And he seems to play very selfishly, much like Kobe did, those first couple years without Shaq. But the difference between them is Kobe put his heart in, and I just don't get that from James Harden. He puts his talent on the floor, but his heart seems to be iffy at best. He doesn't play with the most passion, I think, and he could definitely put a little more effort into both ends of the floor. Now, the big signing for them was Ryan Anderson, and he's a really good stretch four, and he'll actually help them the most, I think, because it gives James Harden another perimeter threat. It'll open up the floor for him nicely. And Ryan Anderson's always been a pretty good player. Put up 17 points a game last year, which is really solid. And other than that, they kind of just have a lot of role players. Nene, he's okay. I don't know if he's even a starting quality center, in my opinion. I do believe they'll start Clint Capella because he's pretty young, and I actually think he can be a decent center. He's on the radar for Most Improved Player of the Year because he will probably get a lot more minutes than last year now that Dwight's gone. Trevor Ariza, I like him. He's a good 3-and-D wing. I think that's what this team needs, is a lot of those 3-and-D wings, because we all know James Harden's probably going to have the ball in his hands 22 out of the 24 seconds of the shot clock. And other than that, they don't really have a whole lot of talent on the roster. Patrick Beverley, he's a decent player, really good defender. Monty Eunice, he'll be a good bench player. And Corey Brewer, he's getting up there, a little older, not as fast as he used to be, so he'll probably see a little less playing time, but he's still a decent bench player. So obviously this team has got some decent players, and with Mike D'Antoni running that new offense, they'll put up a lot of points, but these guys are not going to play much defense, which is why I have them out of the playoff picture. At the 8th seed and just sneaking into the Western Conference playoff picture, I've got the Minnesota Timberwolves. And I think any NBA fan would tell you that this team's future is so bright. And they've done a lot of things that I think will help them make that big jump this year to get into the playoffs. Tom Thibodeau, I think he's a great hire. He's going to put in a lot of defensive intensity into these young players, which is something that young players usually don't have. And obviously, I don't need to say much about Karl-Anthony Towns. I mean, he just put up such amazing numbers his rookie year. It looks like he's going to be the face of the NBA one day, and he's going to bring the center back. He's kind of old school. He's got really nice post moves. He can run the floor, and he also mixed in that new school NBA. He's pretty good three-point shooter. He's really good at blocking shots. So there's pretty much nothing he can't do, which is why I think the ceiling for this team is so high, as they already have Wiggins, who I think he's pretty much solidified himself as just a really good wing scorer, which is not a bad thing. Definitely going to be an all-star, I think, probably this year. And he'll probably put up around 25 points a game, and that combo right there is standalone. Like, that's probably enough to make this team a playoff team. But it doesn't hurt that they have Zach LaVine. He's a really good wing, good three-point shooter. He gets the team hyped. All those highlight plays, that everyone loves playing with him because he's going to pump you up, man. Those dunk plays just get the whole team going every game. And Ricky Rubio is the only thing that I think could actually slow this team down. And I say that because he's kind of becoming a little older, hasn't really been able to stay healthy. And I think this team needs one more real perimeter threat, which is why they drafted Chris Dunn. And I think Chris Dunn would actually finish the season starting for them. I'm sure he'll, start on the bench half the season, learn from Rubio a little bit, and then take the reins. Because I think this team has pretty much told everyone that it's going with the youth movement. And I think you'll see Ricky Rubio's minutes start to go down as the season gets closer and closer to the playoffs. And they added Jordan Hill, he's a good, decent backup center. And other than that, they don't have much. But I think their young talent alone is enough to, really boost them into that 8th seed and put them into the playoff picture for the first time since, I think, 2004, which is a really long drought. At number 7, I've got the Memphis Grizzlies. This is a team that's also been pretty similar the last 3 years, which is why I think this was an easy pick. They'll slide in like they always do, and they'll probably just get bounced in the first round. And I do like the Grizzlies. They play old school. They've got their big man. They play grinded out defense, which is a really good way to play. But at the end of the day, they just don't have enough offense to compete with a higher seed, because that's the teams they're going to be playing against. They're never going to be in the top 4 anymore. I just think that their era of, Marc Gasol and Zach Randolph is kind of over, because Randolph's getting older and Gasol's starting to show a little bit of signs of, health issues. So this team will do the same thing they always do. They'll probably be up there and, the best team defenses. I think they signed Mike Conley, that huge deal. So hopefully he puts up even better numbers, knowing the pressure that he is the guy that they want on this franchise. And they signed Chandler Parsons also. I think that's a big upgrade at the wing. And Tony Allen, he's one of my favorite players. He's a really good defender. So a lot of, good defensive presences. Brandon Wright, he's long. He'll defend off the bench. Vince Carter is really old, and I think he should have retired last year. I don't think he'll have a good season. I think he'll start riding the bench as the season goes on, and he'll start to decline, just like all old players do. Again, no disrespect, it's just how it is. And they have other decent young players, but no one's going to make an impact for this team down here. These guys are kind of just fillers. And that's the thing that hurts this team, I think, is depth. They have a really good starting five, but they just don't have enough bench power to really keep up with some of the more stacked teams in the league. At the 6th seed in the Western Conference, I have the Utah Jazz. This is the year for the Jazz. And what I mean by that is I think we'll know after this year if they're going to keep this core together or blow it up, because we've all thought that the last couple years they showed signs of improvement, but they still haven't really. They've come close, but they really haven't challenged to get into that playoff picture. I know last year they came within one game, but you never really felt like they would make it into the playoffs. But the reason I think that this year they're going to make that big jump is because, one, Derek Favors and Gordon Hayward are two all-star caliber players, and Hayward is entering the absolute prime of his career, so I can expect him to put up some big numbers as well as Favors. And defensively, Rudy Gobert is probably one of the best centers in the league, and I think he's a defensive of the year candidate for sure. He's so young, only 24. He's going to improve for 2-3 more seasons probably before he peaks, which is really good for the Jazz, because this year he's on that $2 million contract and he is going to get paid this next season, so they should take full advantage of his talents this year. And Rodney Hood, he's a really good scorer. I like his game. He pretty much just puts up buckets, which is perfect, because I think this team is really good defensively also, and that they've been lacking that secondary scorer aside from Hayward, so he's going to help out with that so much. And George Hill I call him Mike Conley East, and obviously not anymore, but when he was in the Eastern Conference with the Pacers, I always compared him to Mike Conley in that he was never going to make an all-star team, but I think he was so close, and he's probably still one of the most underrated players in the NBA, and I think that trade is really what catapulted them into being a for sure playoff contender this year. And Dante Exum, he's decent. I don't think he's going to have much impact, but he's young, so he could surprise me, and that's really it. But I just think that the defensive identity and the star power of Gordon Hayward, Rudy Gobert, and Derek Favors is really going to catapult this team into the playoffs for the first time in 4 years, I believe. Alright guys, so that's going to conclude part 2 of my Western Conference breakdown. Part 3, which will be the final 5 seeds in the Western Conference, will be being released within the next couple of days. And then I'll get started on that Eastern Conference. And as always, any questions, comments, disagreements, feedback you have, let me know below in the comments section. And until then, thanks for watching guys. MB Maniac out.